Alright, so I'm Spencer Klee, and today we're going to talk about our closest neighbor and our ancestral home, Mars. I'm an amateur conspiracy theorist who's put a lot of time and effort into understanding this topic, and so I'm here to evaluate Mars's history, Earth's history, and then tie up some loose ends and prove to you that humans came from Mars. So for starters, not many people know this, but Mars has water in the caps, right? But it also used to have water flowing through all of it. There used to be rivers and systems in Mars as well, along with an atmosphere. These things were lost when Mars lost its dynamic core. The dynamic core creates a magnetic field that protects it from solar flares from the sun and keeps its atmosphere safe. This was lost in Mars somehow. I suspect human intervention, but that we'll get into another point. Earth also has one, and it protects us currently from solar flares, and we haven't lost ours yet. Lastly, Mars is known as the red planet, and that comes from the insane amounts of iron oxide that are deposited into Mars' soil. And that's important to know because there's an abundance of this, and it's similar to what Earth would most likely look like, given that humans were gone for 4 billion years, and all of the iron and steel that we've created in our society were to rust over time and be deposited into the soil. Earth would also become a red planet, similarly. But now let's talk about Earth, right? Mars formed before Earth. Earth was safe for life, not human life, about 3.5 billion years ago. Mars was ready for it about 4.5 billion years ago. On top of that, dinosaurs died about 65 million years ago, which is around the time that the first primates started to claim it as their own. And lastly, Earth is considered to be in the Goldilocks area, temperature-wise, for supporting human life. And Mars was at one point in that space. A scientist believes that Mars was actually closer to Venus than Earth at one point, and it moved past and out into its current orbital situation, just to do some comparisons there. So now it's time to tie all this information together, tie up some loose ends. So my theory is that at one point we lived on Mars, and we were siphoning energy from the core or whatever that interrupted with the dynamic core, and scientists realized that this was an issue, and politicians urged them to keep going. And because of that, we realized that we had to stop a little too late, and so we had to get off of Mars, and we realized that Earth had just become a livable planet within that time period. And so separate countries got in their rocket ships and they launched over to Earth. But this was a dangerous mission, right? It's a one-way ticket. We just developed space travel recently, and so it can be a little dangerous. And so you send your youngest, your most survivable, like 16 through 25, that can really get messed up and still be okay. And then you also need to send, wise people, like your 50-somethings or older that know stuff, that, like your chemist and your physicist and all this. And so you launch them and we go into different places, right? But one of these rocket ships creates a terrible, terrible impact, and that's the meteorite that kills off the dinosaurs, right? And then the rest of us land, and we land in separate spots, and that's why you have different races. Now you have like Native Americans and Africans and Europeans and Asians, because different countries landed in different spots on Earth, and then we evolved over many years. But then you might be asking yourself, why don't we have any memories of the technology and the advancements we made on Mars if we had just come over, right? Well, that's because when you crash land on Earth, you have to prioritize survivability to passing of information. And so what you really get is a lot of oral tradition, right? And then so eventually when you say, like, yeah, we had electronics that could move electricity, when you pass that down through 6 generations. So now that you know the true human history, by looking at Mars's history, looking at Earth's history as planets, and then using some logic to fill in some potholes, I urge you to go forth and tell your friends and family the true history of humanity. And hopefully we can all become a more enlightened species together. Thank you.